G'day Flosstube. It is June 28th and I'm Anna, aka Moranalis, and just come back to do my normal stitchy update for I think it's been about 2 weeks since I've been around. First up, welcome to anybody who's joining for the first time. Welcome to anybody who's coming back. Glad to have you back. Not a great deal exciting to report around here, just more of the usual work during the week and try and recover during the weekend. I feel absolutely exhausted today. It's Sunday. I have to start the weekly routine again in the morning, and at this point all I want to do is have a nap. So maybe I will film this and then I won't go have a nap. But I did want to get this filmed because otherwise midweek it won't happen. So for the last 2 weeks, I did get some mail at some point during the 2 weeks, but because I wanted to distribute the bits and pieces, I filmed a segment when those arrive that I will attach at the end. From memory, I was having a bad phone day and there might be about 4 segments, but nonetheless, I'll attach them at the end. And I've cleaned off my phone, so hopefully we don't have a repeat. So without further ado, let's get into it. I've got 3 projects that I've worked on in the last couple of weeks, and I forgot my board, so we're going to wing it. First up, I was working on Celtic Summer by Lavendar and Lace. I'll have to dig up. I'll put a snapshot of where I was. This is where we're aiming for, but I am doing a conversion to what I'm calling my tropical sunset color scheme. It's bright oranges and dark blues with a bit of green, dark greens thrown in there as well. Hold on, the needle holding things together. So hopefully by this point you've already seen what she's going to look like, or where I was last. Really? Can you tell I'm tired? I can't even figure out what I'm saying, guys. So look at that. She is all the way to the bottom, and I think I've got about 3 stitches up the top to finish that medallion. Otherwise she's full height. I love her. She's going to be so awesome when she's done. You will see in the stash segment that the metallics to fill in those swirls did come, and I am going to stick with the ones that I ordered that were originally charted for the original color scheme. So let's put these up close so you can at least see the difference in the color schemes. So I'm going to stick with the original charted metallics, and you will see my kerfuffle with the beads. So we're leaving that still undecided. Because we're going to Brisbane, I'm going to look for more beads while we're there, but I heard rumors that shop is not actually open with the COVID stuff regular hours yet. So I still got to do some call ahead research, see if I can figure out whether I can get my hands on several mill hills, to compare and make a final decision on beads. So I think she's awesome, and I'm very pleased that now that run of medallions is all the way to the top. I think that medallion clearly needs some work. That one looks like that's missing its center, but I'm getting pretty good progress on those string of medallions, which are pretty putsy to stitch. So it's nice to see a bunch of them coming together. The lady herself is much less putsy. You can sit down and make good progress on her very quickly. From memory, I did a fair bit in her hair. But it figures just about the time the metallics arrived that I could have done her swirls. I kind of was over her, and so I put her and her metallics away. We'll have to get her out before too long to get some of that in. And when I put her away, I decided I should pull out my Pearl of the Orient seeds, which is a Bellafilipina. There's a few of us doing a stitch along, so I'll put the hashtag down there for you to see. Also a before picture, hopefully I remember. So I'm doing her more or less as charted. I am using, oh, sorry guys, I forgot to mention, for those of you who haven't heard it 50 times, the fabric for this is a 28 count that I dyed myself. 28 count cashel, that is. And that's just Rit dye. I dyed 4 pieces of that, so I have the option to do all 4 of the Celtic ladies on the same fabric. Otherwise, it's neutral enough that I'll rehome it to something else. Whereas the fabric for the Bellafilipina is 32 count Belfast by Artecy Fabrics, called Dark Fantasy. So if you're willing to wait for your fabrics, highly recommend Color Cascade. The fabrics, it's not a one that I have that isn't gorgeous, but you will wait, so be prepared to wait. I have started doing a fair bit. I finished up her tail. That's the first thing I did when I pulled her out. And then I just started working up her body. And I think there's a fair bit of hair that's gone in as well. So the body's a bit of an experiment. I have this piece in mind to go to my niece. She is of Korean heritage. So I have tried to swap out her skin tone to something more suitable to my niece's skin tone. Besides, with the black hair, like, this is the dead easiest conversion I figured to try this sort of thing on. So bring her in close. I think it'll be all right. I wondered, you know, that's awful dark for my niece's skin tone. But then again, it's the shadow bit. And the original charting for this mermaid, the Pearl of the Orient Seas mermaid, and Queen Sari, who I did last year, they had exactly the same skin tone palette, and I always found that original palette to be very harsh in the gradient between dark and light. However, when you put all the beads in place and got the back stitching in, it did smooth out nicely, so I am hoping this will as well. Actually, really kind of like how she looks in the camera. That is smoothing it out as well. I do have one problem in that I've stitched, you know, what's meant to be her swimsuit top in here, and that gold from her tail, I just feel like that just blends too much. It gets totally lost. There's a bit of metallic in there. I think I'm going to pull those, it's no more than like half a dozen stitches. I'm going to pull those out and replace them with the reds from the tail. I think that will set off much nicer against the darker skin tones than the golds do. So that won't take very long. But obviously, I don't think I didn't have any skin done last time you saw this, so I've actually made a huge amount of progress in putting that in. Got to finish her hands that go out to hold a shell. You see she's holding a shell. And I've got a fair bit to do around the top of her head piece. And then it'll be, I'm hoping with another week's worth of effort, I might be able to get this to the point where you're starting beading. A week is probably a bit of an ambitious estimate, given, well, particularly with my current ability to stitch during the week. But we'll see. She's not far off. If I sat down and made a dedicated effort, I could have her done and dusted in a couple of weeks, no doubt. Whether I will or not is entirely a different question. So pretty pleased with that, and I hope my niece enjoys her. My niece is back in the US, so I'm kind of debating how to physically get this to her. I could mail it and ask my mom to frame it for me. At this point, I don't know when we will actually physically see them to take it to her, so I may have to go something like that, mail it to my mom and beg her to have it framed. But, you know, she's about the right, perfect age for sparkly mermaids. You know, I figure she'll get a kick out of that. So, I think I said last time when I was doing my Stitch from Stash update that I was trying to finish a page on my Aura of Autumn as well. Let me pull up what that's going to look like. So this is the only panel I've started so far. I'm doing each panel individually. I think I'm on this side, pretty sure, about where that lamppost is. So I was aiming for a page finish essentially for the sole purpose of making my Stitch from Stash numbers not quite as bad, because they're pretty dreadful. In no way going to fix the problem, but at least it won't look quite as bad. And I did get my page finished, and I've started down the next column. So this line was the page finish. Managed to finish that off last night by firelight. I did about 4 or 5 stitches by firelight. It's not the best lighting. Anyway, just literally just enough to finish that page. I had it all but finished before we went to dinner, and by the time we walked back to our block, it had gone dark, and so the only thing I had was the firelight to work by, and would not recommend that as good stitching light. You'll notice this time, for those of you who watched a few videos ago, this time I was smart, and I brought something that was entirely DMC, so that, you know, if this smells like campfire, it's just going in the wash. Not an issue. So I expect this actually will probably get a bit more attention today. I'll put in a before picture, but my guess is I was partway up the column, and that bit is all that's new. I'll continue working on this today, mostly just because I'm so brain fried that anything else requires too much thinking. So we'll work on this for the day. We'll try and come up with what we're going to do next week proposal. But if not, I'll just cart this around until I feel like thinking about it. For those of you who are trying parking for the first time, you know, or thinking about trying it, I am definitely a cross-country by preference stitcher. You'll have noticed the other two I worked on, there's no parking whatsoever going on. This, because of the full coverage and confetti, I thought I'd give it a go, and it took me 3, 4, 5 pages to work out a method that worked for me. So first recommendation, if you're trying this, is just to try a lot of different things that you see floating around on the internet or YouTube, wherever you prefer to get your sort of information from. Give it all a crack. Modify it to work for you. Something will work. My process has been basically to do a column at a time and zigzag across the pages, and then within each column I will do my typical cross country for 2 or 3 squares, whatever I feel like, and obviously where it's convenient. Like, there was no more black out here, so I quite happily did the black I had into that next column, but trying to keep the primary focus in the column of choice. Work cross country down. You know, I'll do a bunch of colors, and then at some point I'll make a very deliberate effort to go find the highest miss stitch, pick that color and stitch it down, you know, and then the next one till eventually you get that column finished, in which case I just repeat. And because all my part threads tend to be at the bottom, then I go up, and then they're all tucked, so I go down. Like I said, it's just what's worked for me, and I don't think I've seen anybody do that sort of zigzaggy pattern. So at some point it just seemed to make sense and it clicked, and so I've done that now for 3-4 pages, and it seems to be working all right. Certainly something I've gotten used to enough that I can tolerate it, even though it's not my preferred method of stitch in hand, one thread at a time, cross country. When you get to the end of the thread, go back to the center-ish of your design, pick a new color, and stitch that thread. So this is done on a unknown count, even weave, chosen for the sole purpose of it being relatively cheap because there are 3 panels, and doing each panel separately, then of course you have more fabric requirements for framing each individual panel. So it's all the logic there was in that fabric choice. It's an even weave though. Generally prefer to stitch on linen, simply because I like the way the linen looks with the natural fibers, but for full coverage where you're not going to see the fabric, why spend the money? So I stitch on even weave in that case. Anyway, so I think that's it for me. I will put my stash updates in next, and other than that, I will see you next week, guys. Or a couple of weeks. Bye. Excuse me. G'day, Flosstube. June 20th, I just want to film a quick segment because I had a couple of packages arrive and I want to put all this stuff away. So I'm not going to do a regular update video for another week, so I'll tack it on at the end of that. So, no Tahiti mandala. Bit bummed about that, my sad pony face. But we do have some other pretty cool stuff. So, I've been looking at this one, Winter Quakers. Essentially, I saw it, Gary, one of the Sunshine Sisters, was working on this. And I kind of like, you know, it reminds me of all the different snowflakes from home for winter. Very unlike the Townsville winter we get here. So I thought that might be kind of neat to do and hang up as just kind of a subtle reminder at home. This calls for all Valdanis. I haven't bought any yet. There's no DMC conversion charted in the actual chart. So I will put it away for a while, and at some point I'll decide whether or not I'm going to have a go with the Valdanis versus just swap it out for DMC. There is some of the threads in there are definitely variegated. So if I swap it out, I'll probably try and stick with a similar sort of variegation rather than, you know, just flat DMC. But that's a someday project. Other randomness that showed up were some DMC floss and a whole cone of 310, simply because at this rate I'm buying 3 or 4 skeins of 310 every time I walk into our local big box store, and still permanently out. Now, excuse me, ages ago, I had bought shades of gold, but I didn't know what colors I wanted to do it in. So, finally think I picked these. So, they're all dinky dyes. The variegation is purples and yellows and a bit of that turquoise that's in the base color. So I'm thinking the darker gold that was called for will be the more solid turquoise, and the lighter gold will be the variegated one. That's the plan. So these shall live together now until I get around to actually starting that one. So these colors are Dinky Dyes Frio is the variegated one. I think that's so cool. And then it's Dinky Dyes Noosa for the turquoise. There is some very minor variegation in there, not a great deal. In fact, two of them seem to have very minor variegation, and the third one looks much more solid. But I think for the, here I'll compare. See, on camera it looks worse in real life. They don't quite look the same. But I think it'll be good enough. So that is another someday project. Not going to start that in the next 5 minutes. Storage issues again. I really need to clean my phone off. So the other stuff that came in was metallics and beads for Celtic summer. So reminder, that's what she looks like. We're doing a tropical sunset conversion. This is the charted metallic that was to go in those swirls. Her original color scheme was teals and yellows. I think it's mostly teals in the dress. All that yellow you see is the charted gold in there. I'm not unhappy with that gold. I had also compared it to a very brighter gold. This is kind of a softer gold. But I think I like the softer gold better. So we will stick with the charted metallic and put that through her swirls and through her dress. The beads, we did not have. I don't know if you can hear that, but I think somebody started up some tools in the shed. Give me a second. So much for one quick segment. I think we're up to 3 videos to a pin for this one segment. But hopefully with shutting the door, you won't be able to hear the racket in the background. Okay, so metallic sorted. Beads, we didn't have such crash hot luck with. So this is the charted bead to go through the center of her dress. Excuse me, because in these center motifs here, these cross motifs, well, it looks like a cross when it's blank. It's basically 4 bits of metallic and then the bead in the center. So because I was trying the charted metallic, I left the charted bead. I'm not unhappy with that bead. I expect I will probably keep that bead. That is the one success story in the beads. I will need a second pack. I only bought one so I could see what I was getting. The other 4 beads that were called for, are in various spots in the motifs. There's beads through her hair in the greenery. There's probably some in the greenery that she's holding. They're scattered around a bit more. So I went off the theory of I'll get 2 bead packs that match the oranges and 2 bead packs that match the blues, and that should work. So that was the theory we were going with. First problem, it's a lovely light blue color match, awesome color matching. It's a size 8 pony bead. I think that's what they call them, the pony beads. Size 8, it's massive. It's not going to fit in any of these little things. Color's awesome, size not so much. So obviously that one's just going straight in the stash for who knows when it'll get used. My guess is if I'd been a bit more careful, you could have looked up the numbers and found that information, but I was concentrating on the colors. The colors I didn't do too badly. But again, that's for my darker blue. I thought the color was not too bad for a darker blue. It's a petite bead. So we have really big and really small. Anyway, For the oranges, we had a bit better luck in the sizing. So I bought that one for the lighter orange that I had. And this orange for the very darkest oranges. It's almost, it is pretty much brown, as are those inner threads. So they are definitely sticking with the kit. They're good color matches. They'll go in the maybe useful pile. But I'm going to have to go back and rethink those blues. I will probably try and just do a conversion, you know, now that I've got colors I am happy with, see what the equivalent of this number, the 18828 in the larger beads, would be in the regular glass beads. My only not as thrilled about the orange beads is that these I've definitely got the opaque rather than the shiny metallic look to them. I don't know. I don't think it's enough that I'm going to worry about trying to find a different option. I think these ones are here. These ones are good colors. We'll make these ones work. Whereas the big old beads are not going to fit. We're going to have to do something else for them. I did note that some of the originally charted beads, you know, particularly the ones that go through her hair, they actually go to the greens rather than to the colors in the dress. So I may have a look and just buy some of those charted ones and then use the orange ones. At this point, we're hoping to head to Brisbane in a couple of weeks, end of school holidays. And I think there's an L&S down there. I don't know whether they stock, you know, keep Mill Hills on the shelf, but I thought that might be a very much easier way to go about figuring out what I wanted for each of these beads. This experiment was a bit hit and miss. So we've had some success, but we're going to have to go back to the drawing board on some of them. And it may just be easy to pack up the entire thing, take it with me to Brisbane, and sit down with all the packs of beads in front of me, if I can find a spot, and choose from there that way. So anyway, that's what we got. Back to the main video, or I'll see you next week. I'm not sure.